Let's get started, Coach. So I want to bring you back, Coach. We've been talking more just about, like you said, kids today, and maybe what are some of the things they're lacking. I think another thing that makes Peninsula wrestlers special is just their resilience, that pit grit that you teach. I think sports are great for teaching hard work and resilience in these things. And so wanted to take a moment just because in school you see how quickly and easily so many kids are giving up on themselves and on their future. So um, you know, when you say that as a coach, what are your views on how to teach resilience in these things?
Well, you have to deal in reality as opposed to in theory. And the reality is every kid is going to be weak in there's something that they don't know. Or every kid's going to be talked about. Every kid's going to be made fun of. Every kid is until they learn something, until they learn certain skills.
You know, and maybe that's a change or something we start with is there's this expectation now that people aren't going to make fun of you or that things should always be fair or I think parents maybe you feel that from parents sometimes as teachers and just as a society that somehow that's become the idea it should be fair and that's just not.
Well, they'll say things like, "You're supposed to accept me the way I am."
Uh-huh.
No, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
I don't. Or you're supposed to see things my way. No, I won't.
Yeah.
And
A
that's
good
what
way I
gets them.
think of it is it feels like now sometimes we raise kids teaching them the world should adjust to you as you are. And
Yes.
the reality is you the successful people adjust to the world and adjust to circumstances and
Yeah.
figure out how to adapt, not wait for the world to adapt to them.
Simple. Everybody wants to. They think they want to be on top.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to get there. It's another thing to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And words. I was thinking about this. They're just words until someone gives them meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Like the word love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is just a word until someone gives it meaning, and you can get, say, 50 different people and have 50 different definitions of what love is.
Well, we'll get later in these slides. We'll get to talk. Yeah, a lot more. I think one thing that helps kids at Peninsula is you teach them how to control their self-talk and be
Yes.
aware of what these words mean. But I guess like you, the thing you see in schools is there's a lot of kids dealing with, I guess, underdogs coming from adverse experiences that kids are made fun of. They're labeled. They're behind. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so for me, I know we've talked about for some of these underdogs, these tougher kids, they have a chance to have a real advantage if we as coaches and teachers teach them how to be resilient, right? Because they get training in it all the time.
One thing about being that kid from the tough background
Mm-hmm.
is you know what you don't want.
Uh-huh.
So you work hard to get what you think you want.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you get that, then you realize you had something that you didn't want.
Yeah, and I think the other part, right, maybe like we were touching on earlier, you don't have the expectation that it should be handed to you.
No,
Or
I'm all about work.
right.
I am a black man. And for the 50 years that you've seen me coach, I've never used that as an excuse to be nothing but great.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might not like me, but you know what? That's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
How I come across the kids, they care about it. And they see me in situations where I don't let things bother me. We walk in like we own the place.
Mm-hmm.
The important things of just shaking hands and looking someone in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
I can recall I was in Boise, Idaho, and me and the coaches, we were out getting dinner, and they wouldn't serve me. So
Uh-huh.
I got up and walked out
Mhm.
because I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And then when they came back, they were real uncomfortable, and they said, "Well, I didn't think that happens nowadays in today's society." I said, "This is what kids go through every day, and they need to see us how we handle situations like this." So what did I do? I went back to the restaurant the next day.
That's a great point. I think in two levels. Some of the research says, we teach resilience and these things about growth mindset by how we'll react when our child fails, when a student fails. What do we say when the kid fails? Um, and I know one thing I always feel like you do a great job is one, you're very patient with kids, but you don't ever compromise your high expectations for them.
Yeah, well, it's getting them to believe in themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And I say these things, and they're very easy to overlook. The hardest three words to say and to do is to convince that person in the mirror that you love yourself.
Hmm.
That's hard. But once you start saying that and really believing that, then that starts changing everything that you do.
Hmm.
Every kid wants to represent something. And,
So, how
and
do you, as a coach, manage that when you have kids on your team? Like Hyde was saying, it lost for 3 years, what have you. How do you manage, maintain those high expectations? How would you tell other coaches and teachers to do that?
how you have to be able to read kids and get a relationship with them outside of wrestling,
Hmm.
outside of their ability. I don't expect all kids to get it at once. I don't just work with the gifted kids, I work with all of them. And because they all have something to give. But we have to let our ego go because, we as adults, teachers, and coaches, we are judged by our peers, by our successes, and in teachers by all the kids that get the good grades. We're all judged. And we get into a meeting or get with our peers. Oh, look what my team has done. Look what my kids are doing.
Mm.
And you know what that means? Nothing.
That.
Doesn't mean nothing. Doesn't mean a darn thing, man.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a real skill because I don't think you'll find many kids that went to peninsulas that felt like you didn't think they were great or you didn't make them feel special. Um, and like
the
you said,
key
when you're working with thousands of kids, that's something not easy to do.
when you are dealing with kids or you're talking to kids, you want to first get their attention and make them all think that you are talking to them
Hmm.
personally. It's not the whole group, is you're just directing everything to them in their mind.
Hmm.
In your mind, you're talking to the group because you found something in common. You say, this is something that we have done, something we need to work on.
Okay.
It makes a big difference. And say, I am getting better
Hmm.
at this. And I thank them.
There you go.
It's a
You know,
simple thing.
maybe more this slide. I think it's something you always tell kids. You know, it's being aware. What do you say about yourself to yourself?
Yes.
And there's so much of, like, you see the research and the theory is how do you interpret something bad happens to you, and it's what do you say about that? Did it happen because I am a black man and people hate me, or because this person was having a bad day, or whatever interpretations? And and just maybe you could talk about the role and how you try to help kids control their own interpretations of experiences.
Well, one of the things that I think we need to do is take the dictionary and throw it away
Hmm.
because the dictionary has definitions of words that these kids don't know anything about.
Hmm.
They have their own definitions. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's their definitions.
Okay.
And that's what I deal with is their definitions. So they don't make mistakes. They just make choices, bad choices.
I think another example of that we make in school is, we talk a lot about it, just the impact of labels have on kids.
Oh,
And I guess that for
that's
me,
that's worse.
yeah, when you see those kids get a label and then they start believing that label, and pretty soon they start acting like those labels.
Or you start looking for them to act like those labels, and
Um,
if they don't act like those labels, you find something to put them in those labels.
mm,
That's the key, and it all depends on how you feel. All black kids are lazy, athletic, no good.
mm,
They're not good at math. All Chinese kids or Asian kids are good in school. They're good in math. They're good in reading.
mm,
And now, how stupid is that?
mm.
Come on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But these are the things that we say, and and kid, and we say it so much and so often that kids kids believe it because their minds haven't developed yet, and so they believe these things.
Yeah, I think again, like you said, kids are looking to adults to see how to respond to new experience, right? If I
Period.
don't know how to react to a new experience, I'm usually looking to my parents. How did they respond? How did the other meaningful adults in my life respond to adversity? So we want our kids to be more resilient. We probably need to work on it ourselves, like you said.
Hey, my parents didn't tell me how to live. They lived and let me watch them.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch how they handle situations. Everyone talks about, well, I didn't have a good childhood. I had a fabulous childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I had a mother, I had a father. They both worked. We had our own house. We had our family structure. And we ate dinner together. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. We used to babysit our little sisters. We did all of those things. Now, maybe it wasn't like someone else's family, but I saw how they handle it.
Mm-hmm.
My father went to work. He had to walk to work because he didn't drive, stuff like that.
So I
So,
was thinking of maybe a way of looking at this for teachers and maybe to help coaches. Let's say, so you're coaching a kid and he has a big match. Let's say the state championship and he loses on a bad call by a referee. What sort of things would you try to say to them, or how were you were great at getting kids to move on from those bad experiences and focus on the next match. What are some things you do in those moments when those kids come off the mat? You can see they're pretty crushed and what have you.
first, I let them cool off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just walk over and tell them you should have done this, you should have done that. I let them cool off. And then I acknowledge, hey, man, that was a tough match, man.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could have done some things differently, but you think about it. But you did a good job.
That's maybe a great example too of, like you were saying, we as adults handle it. When the coach flips out and he's yelling at the referee and
Yeah,
banging on the table, right? That's maybe, that is the kid is saying, this is how I should react when bad things happen to me.
that's exactly right. That's that gang mentality. Something bad happens to a gang member, they go and want to get retaliation. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all the kid knows is retaliation when bad things happen. So
Well,
you know, we need to change. We'll realize, accept the fact that we are the role models,
mm-hmm.
and that these kids are watching us, and nothing we do go unnoticed by these kids. Nothing, nothing. And
Yeah. Well, oh, I can't forget what I can't remember what I was going to say. But here's another just example of, you see in the research, so much of what we're seeing in terms of motivation comes down to how kids interpret those when something bad happens. What do they say about themselves and what do they do about it? And I guess why I think sports are special is because usually kids care and you're willing to try harder and be more persistent and resilient when you care at something and you're good at it, as opposed to trying to get kids to be persistent at math. or some subject that you hate and you're not good at. So that's why I think it's important, if we're going to teach resilience, you don't work hard at something you don't care about. You don't work hard if you don't feel like your hard work's going to pay off. Um,
You don't listen to people you don't like.
yeah, same thing. Yeah.
And so what I do is I give them the answer to the test or to the question and let them know so that when the test comes out, they'll know what the right answer is. And that shows me at least they learn how to listen and how to find out, you know, they feel better about themselves. They won't try to cheat. Because most of the time when you talk to kids, they hear bits and pieces of conversation and not all the conversation.
So yeah, sorry on the slides. I'm still learning, like we've been saying. Um, so let's say you have a new kid comes in with his parents, maybe third, fourth grader, and he's had a rough go of it, and you can see he doesn't feel like he fits in, doesn't he or she doesn't feel like she's good enough. You can see a lot of those labels going through their head. Maybe walk us through some examples or process or how you help them, reshape how they look at themselves and the things they say about themselves.
When, say, a new kid comes in, the first thing I do is I give them my attention to let them know that I care about them. And then I get other kids in the room to go up and introduce themselves to this kid to make them feel part of the team, part of the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Make them be nice. And I always catch them doing something good.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of practice, give them recognition, some type of recognition. And that's what breaks the ice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what forms a relationship. That's what forms a bond. And say, then we can move on from there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I talk to the parents or talk to the kid and says, how can I help you? Or what do you want? What do you want to get from the program?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how can I help you get what you want to get from the program besides being a national champion and all that? I said, I can do that with anyone. What do you want to get?
Mm-hmm. I come back here as we wrap up. I was thinking, a lot of times I tell parents, I say, the only thing I need to know about your child to kind of get a sense of their future is how well do they respond to adversity. Because to me, no matter how smart your child is or cute or talented is, sooner or later, they're going to come up to a challenge. And what are they going to do when they're not the smartest kid in the room? And, just from our conversation, it's really true. We teach them how to respond to adversity by how we respond to adversity.
Exactly.
And if we teach them it's okay to give up or to blame other people, then we should expect them to do similar things.
Everybody's is tired of these days off,
Mm-hmm.
but they wanted these days off because everybody wanted days off. Now you got them.
Mm-hmm.
So now how are you dealing with them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kids are watching us deal with them.
Yeah.
And they are mimicking whatever we say. They're copying whatever we say. Well, I want to go back. I want to do this. Then they go back. Then they want to take a vacation again.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what this is just like retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to retire until you retire. Then you got all this time on your hands. And then what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I can tell you have to give yourself a purpose every day.
Not every day, every moment.
Yeah.
Every moment. And don't take it personal.
Well, it's funny, like you started out before we came on, you were saying how a lot of kids, when they go to college, they don't know what to do with that freedom for the first time.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of the same thing now.
Excuse me a minute.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
All right, everybody got to say hi to Please, huh?
Yeah, that was Please. That was my dog. Everyone's got to be nice to my dog because my dog's name is Please.
Okay. Well, let's wrap up here, man. It's been about a half hour. I know we go too long sometimes, but
Okay.
I think especially going forward as schools and service providers and parents, you know, how can your experience in these things helping kids learn how to respond to adversity is probably more needed than ever, because again, we're not going to avoid the challenges ahead, and it's going to be what do we do to respond.
One of the things you tell kids is, I know you're going to go through adversity, but the one thing that for sure is you don't have to go through it alone. I will be there with you, but you've got to take the first step.
Oh man, see now we got to go a little longer. We didn't even mention it. The best
Oh,
friend you give everybody.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, let's save that for next time. Maybe
Okay, we can definitely do that, man. Okay.
All right, Coach. I'll talk to you later.
Take care,